Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva. I had to think about it.
Who am I? And this is Twisted Listeners, a podcast about murder.
Endless.
And we're back with a new list. This is jogger murders, murders of people who are
Hmm.
jogging.
Who are
And
jogging.
yeah, it's a good topic.
It's a true crime classic. I feel like joggers or runners are constantly murdered. And I can be my same way with hiking. I can just be like, hey, don't
Yeah,
run.
this is your PSA. Uh but
Yeah,
in any case, it's interesting to me that we've never done this before, you know? Like
it
I'm
is. Yeah.
surprised that this is like a new topic. But glad we got to it. Sometimes the
Also, I
real
wanted to
obvious
say,
ones are we forget about. What were you gonna say?
sorry, I was jumping the gun. I wanted to say that it's really interesting how joggers are not only subject to being murdered, they also find a lot of bodies. So like when I
Yeah.
was doing the research for this, I was finding a lot of joggers
hmm
find, mutilated corpse. So like that's also a risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, like, it's kind of like if you're one of your bucket list things is like finding a body, then maybe take up jogging,
Yeah.
but it's a chance, it's a risky thing.
Hikers find, but I'm just saying these are if you're either going to find other joggers who are murdered or you're going to be the jogger who was murdered. That's what's going to happen to
Or
you if you're trying to jog.
you're gonna get a nice workout and then go home and enjoy the rest of your day. Come on, Diva. Uh, you can't be that like cynical about it. Anyway, I guess you can. So let's get this going.
Okay.
We both have busy days and we've got a lot to talk about. So let's get moving. You chose, so I'm going to go first, and I'm talking about Sydney Sutherland.
Okay.
And I'm just going to jump in on this case. She lived in Arkansas. She was a super well liked girl growing up, popular, pretty, everybody loved her. She graduated from high school in 2014 at the top of her class, so she was also very smart. From there, she went on to become a nurse. She had at least one sister, a few nieces who lovingly called her Aunt Sassy because she was
Oh,
a sassafras. Like she was a very sassy woman, but in a really fun way.
that's cute.
So, yeah, she was strong willed, opinionated, smart, knew her mind. Uh,
Love it.
yeah, sounds great to me. And what's interesting and turns out to be kind of ominous, in late July 2020, she posted on her Facebook that if she was ever murdered, just know she went down talking trash the whole way. So,
That's you.
yeah, yeah, for real. So she was super close with her family and especially her mother, with whom she spent a lot of her free time. Like even when, her group of girlfriends would go out and do things, oftentimes she would like invite her mother or just like hang out with her mom. They were really, really close. So at the time that this happens, she was living in or near Grubbs, Arkansas, which is a small farming town of about 300 people. And it's one of those things where she may have lived there or in like a nearby town, but it was kind of one of those things where like they all sort of run into each other. And the other thing is, I was looking at her jogging trail, and it reminds me kind of where I lived up, where as soon as you get outside of like the city, there's just these really long country roads with all of these random sort of like dirt turnoffs. And those
Yeah.
turnoffs turn into like, dirt roads to homes. So it'll be like what we call a country road, like a long paved road with like a bunch of dirt roads that get to like individual homes or farms or whatever. So
Yeah.
Sydney lived in this area. It was considered extremely safe. And she was a fitness freak. She worked out daily. She would work out in a gym, but she also went for regular jogs around town, and she had like a path or various paths that she would take. And
Gotcha.
in normal fashion, the late afternoon of August 19th, 2020, she was at home with her mom and decided to go for a run. Now, on this day, weirdly, her mom did try to talk her out of it because she'd already gone to the gym for
Mm.
90 minutes earlier.
Oh
Yeah,
my God. That's like, wow, she's really into it.
she's really into it. But she said, running released her and helped her clear her mind.
Yeah.
So her mom was like, okay, do your thing. And her boyfriend, I guess, was there as well. And she was like, I'll be back, in like an hour. Right.
Okay.
And they're like, cool, have fun. We'll see you when you get back. This is something she did all the time. After an hour, her family started to worry. After 2 hours, her mother called the police. Her brother Sam and her mother Maggie, called and they took it seriously right away. And they started searching for Sydney immediately. Um, and people from around the city or the town, I should say, um, helped as well. And this was nearby farmers, this was community. Like I said, she was really well known. But they didn't find her. They didn't find any sort of, you know, there was no sight, like no sign of her. I could not think of that word. I was like, signs, sights, no sign of her. So, they get other law enforcement in, like, they're taking it very, very seriously. And I think it's like the following day, um, they're out doing search. Her mom is like organizing a search party. And one of the men who's helping look for her was named Quake Llewellyn. And he had actually called in the first day she was missing and said that he had seen her near a certain road. So when her mother saw Quake, she was like, hey, he was 28 years old. Sydney was 25 at this point. And she's like, hey, what did you see? And he's like, she was just running. Like, I didn't really see anything, but I'm here to help search. And he hugged her, and her mom, Maggie, hugged him back, and then she went over to the group of people she was originally with and she said, I have a feeling about this guy. I think something bad happened. Um,
Mm,
and she told the police, and the police took her seriously. And they
great.
started interviewing Quake. And they also, I don't know exactly, I read it and I can't remember exactly what it was, but somehow they ended up getting access to his car. And in his car, they found evidence that Sydney had been in there. Like I said, this is going to
Okay.
be a quick retelling. We're just kind of tight on time. Uh, but basically he went from like it was weird because it's like a mother's intuition. Basically, like
Yeah.
he was
They
helping.
always know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
and it's, well, not always. I mean, we definitely know that there are cases where, like, what was that one where the girl killed her best friend and then like moved in with her mom and like assumed kind of the life of the best friend? Do you remember that?
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, what was that?
Yeah, I don't know. I forget. We did the
Someone
case
tell
a long
us.
time ago.
Someone,
Somebody remind us it was
yeah,
us.
sounds
So
gnarly.
okay, let me go back a little bit. So Thursday night, the 20th. So she disappeared on the 19th. Thursday night, they found her phone about a quarter mile from her house. The phone was not damaged. They continued on Friday. They said they were working on several leads. And 2 p.m. Friday, searchers found a woman's body. Now, they couldn't definitively confirm who it was, but we all fucking know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all know.
Yeah.
Um, 4 hours later on Friday, Quake Llewellyn was taken into custody for her murder. Now, they found they found evidence, they found DNA uh
Okay.
that said it was, they confirmed it was Sydney, but they found other DNA, they found other evidence in his car. um Now they arrested Quake and he admitted to what he did. He told
No.
them that he saw her jogging and came up on her with his car and hit her, apparently, with his car. Yeah,
Holy shit.
knocked her off the road where she was jogging. He then got out, got on her. I don't know if he did this right there, but I believe he did because, again, it's really fucking isolated and like nobody's around. He raped her. I don't know if she
Oh
was
my
still
God.
alive at that point, and then he murdered her, and then he dumped her body. Um,
Ugh,
this was a man who knew Sydney, like they knew each other. So I don't
wow.
I don't know that she saw it coming. I think he just came up behind her and smashed her with the truck, and as she lay dying, sexually assaulted her, and then tried to
Wow.
hide her body. Now,
That
once
is
he went
horrific.
it's fucking horrific. Now, once he went to trial, he changed his story and said, um, oh, he put her in his truck and sexually assaulted her. That's what it was. Because I was like, I don't think he moved her
Okay.
body at the time, but I don't think he was
Right.
exposed. Yeah. So he put her in his truck and sexually assaulted her, and then he murdered her
Okay.
and dumped her body. So at the
Okay.
time, he admitted to what he did. And then when it came time to plead, he pleaded not guilty, which was really fucking
Mm,
like, bro, you
it
fucking
is.
confessed. It's not uncommon for that to happen, but whatever.
Right.
So anyway, so he pleads not guilty, and then just as they're going to trial, he changes his plea again and he decides to plead guilty. So that makes things a little bit easier. I do believe Arkansas
Hmm.
is a death penalty state. It would be absolutely shocking if it wasn't. So I believe that the reason that he changed his plea was to avoid the death penalty. And
Okay.
instead, he was given life in prison without parole. And both of her parents gave, victim impact statements before Maggie did. Forced, she didn't force, but commanded and demanded that Quake look at her while she told him what a piece of shit he was. And
Yeah.
Sydney's father, Dion, called Llewellyn, quote, well, he said, quote, a 300-pound coward. Oh, he called him, quote, a 300-pound coward that hit my 100-pound daughter with a 3,000-pound truck.
Ooh, when
Uh,
you put the pounds to it, that's extra rough.
yeah, it's really pretty fucking damning.
Ugh.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know that he hit her intentionally. I think he did. I think he tries to put a spin on it that it was like an accident. But it's like, bro, if it's an
Yeah.
accident, why did you then sexually assault her? Like there's a
Right.
lot of
That's where
better
it
ways to
stops being the
handle.
accident. Yeah. If
Yeah,
it's an
yeah.
accident, you stop and you get help and you render aid and da 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 da.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's a total piece of shit, but he's going to be
Yes.
in in prison for the rest of his life. So I know,
Yes.
guys, that
Very
wasn't
much.
like there's a lot more to this story, but I just wanted to give like a pretty good overview. I think it was really well covered in the media. Pretty fucked up
Interesting.
though. Pretty fucked up.
It is fucked up. Just a
And
random run. Like that's
yeah, and
just
weird
more
that
testimony, yeah, to like
to
this
not
random horrific shit that men subject women to when they're just trying to like exist
live their
in public
lives.
spaces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I find it really creepy that he like not only called in a lead, but then attempted to like help find her. Like that to me,
Mm-hmm.
that to
Extra
me is
crazy.
like extra crazy and really lets me know like it wasn't an accident and he probably would have done it again if he got away with it because that is like
Yes.
serial killer
Yes.
behavior,
Yep.
like real
Joining in
fucking
on the
weird.
search. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's not like an accident that went wrong or went sideways. Like that's premeditated. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the
Wow.
story. Pretty fucked up.
Is Quake short for something or is Quake like his whole name?
I don't know. Everything that I saw, it was just Quake Llewellyn. And I'm like, that's a
It's an interesting
fucking
name.
very
Yeah.
interesting name, right?
I've heard Llewellyn. That's normal to me, but not Quake.
Yeah, Quake is strange. I don't really
Yeah.
know. I don't
Hmm.
know.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, so there we go.
Okay. Well, that was short, but still punchy and horrific
Yes,
and
I
interesting.
tried. Yeah, I feel really bad. I feel really bad for that.
All right.
All right. Tell me about yours.
Yeah. So mine, I got a little more involved than I thought I would. It's one of those ones where you're not going to be sure how you feel, or maybe you
Okay.
will be sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel, but maybe you will be. But it's one of those ones where you're like, did he or didn't he?
Oh, okay.
Um,
That'll be interesting.
yeah, legitimately not sure. And I also picked this blatantly because it takes us back, Cindy, to the East Bay,
Oh, okay. All
to
right.
our former hangout. Yeah. So this is the case of Roberta or Bibi Lee, as she was known. Bibi Lee was 21. She was a student at UC Berkeley. So this is going to take place technically in Oakland, but they were students at Berkeley. Um, I couldn't find a ton about her and like her background, so it's okay because this case is very beefy as it is. But like, I'm sorry that I'm just apologizing that I don't have like a full life story of BB, but whatever. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I
sometimes in a
always give a
podcast,
brief,
I also,
you
yeah,
know. I give a brief overview, but I don't think it's necessary all the
I
time.
couldn't find it. I couldn't find it, and I try. And sometimes also I get annoyed when podcasts do that for like 25 minutes, and I'm like, all right,
Yeah, you're like, get to the part
Um,
we're here for. No, I know. I totally
yeah.
get it. I totally get it.
But anyway, Bibi met in 1983 a dude named Bradley Page, who was a little bit older than her. He was 24. They met when they both lived at a student co-op that was part of UC Berkeley,
Yeah.
officially part of the residence hall kind of landscape. And its name, I love. Its name was Lothlorien, which is of course from Lord of the Rings. That's a
Yes.
woodland elf realm.
I feel like I know people who lived there.
It's still continuing. Yeah, it's never
Yeah.
stopped. Yeah. It's right off of the main area to like by Telegraph and like the whole part of town. It's yeah, I'm just like that's the coolest name
Yeah.
for a place to live.
Oh, I
Obviously, I
definitely
was a big
know.
Lord of the Rings nerd.
I think my shithead ex-boyfriend lived there, actually.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you. Fuck that. But okay, go on. Sorry.
Lothlorien. Yeah. So anyway, they started dating there. But then in the fall of '84, she moved to a new residence hall, and their relationship became strange, just in general. I'm not sure if that was a factor.
Okay.
Um, But November 4th, we're getting right to it.
Yeah.
1984, the couple went on a jog with a friend and fellow Lothlorien resident, 19-year-old Robin Shaw. So they went to the Redwood Regional Park in the Oakland Hills. And I have a question. Did we go there?
Where?
Did we like hike there
I,
or like run there?
what's it called?
The Redwood Regional Park?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, we've been there for sure.
I
Yep.
think it was with you that I
Yes.
used to dabble in
Yep.
outdoorsy things. And
Absolutely. We hiked there
I
once.
think we went there. Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I remember
okay.
it really well. Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
okay. And I mean, the Oakland Hills are beautiful. You get this view of the bay and this
First
in
and
San
last time you ever
Francisco.
did that.
Yeah, probably. But it's beautiful. Like I said, Oakland Hills. Um, so I was like, yeah, oh my God, we've been here. So on the car ride to the park, Robin would later describe that it was really tense and like Bibi was clearly mad at Brad, like kind of not talking to him. So she was like, oh, not enjoying the vibes.
Hmm.
Um, he would later explain, and we'll get more into this, that they had fought the night before because this is how he puts it. She was mad about what she considered to be him going on a date with another woman. He did not consider it to be a date, and she
Okay.
considered it to be a date. So that was
Okay.
the contention.
Okay.
Basically, he went to a party with another girl, and she's like, "Fuck you, how dare you?" And he was like, "It's a friend." So that was the contention.
But were they dating? Like officially at that
Yes, well,
point?
BB and Brad, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So, but she was pissed about that.
Okay. All right.
Um, So the three ran for a while together in the park.
Hmm.
When they reached the area of Roberts Park, I guess there's different kind of milestones in this area. I don't remember.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I don't either.
they reached an area called Roberts Park. They had agreed to end the run there. But when they got there, Robin had kind of fallen behind, but she saw up in the distance ahead that Bibi and Brad went in two different directions. Like they just
Hmm.
like ran away from each other. She's like, okay.
That's weird.
So it's very weird. This whole thing is weird.
Yeah.
So eventually Brad and Robin realized Bibi's not like there. Like she ran away and she's not coming back. So they basically are like, where the fuck is Bibi? They go down to the parking lot. Brad says he was going to drive up. I guess there's a road you can drive that's kind of parallel to the park.
Hmm.
So he says he's going to drive up and look, at her, look for her from the road. So he does this, and about 15 minutes later, he comes back to the parking lot, and Robin describes him appearing, quote unquote, angry, worried, scared, and confused. That is how Robin describes his demeanor.
Angry, worried, scared, and confused. I feel like that's how I would
Yeah.
feel. If I didn't do anything, that is fair for how I would
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah. So they discuss that maybe she just left on her own, and even though she came with them and it's a fucking wooded area, that seems weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy
But
that.
yeah, but they eventually decide to just leave without her. And Robin said this made her really uncomfortable, and she was like freaked out about doing that. But they do.
Yeah.
When they get back to their dorm hall, they both live at Lothlorien. Brad calls around with some of Bibi's friends to see if she hooked up with any of them, but she was nowhere to be found. This is a time before cell phones, right? So it's like he's using a landline, and she couldn't have just like texted someone like, come get me, right?
Right.
So the Lothlorien residents that day, the group was set to go on a trip to the Exploratorium in San Francisco that
Oh,
she was
love
going
it
to
there.
go. Yeah, oh my God, so good. I can't wait to
So
take my kid there. It's
so
gonna be
fun.
so good. Um, so BB was supposed to go on that trip with them, and interestingly, it was Brad who called the organizers and said she got quote unquote separated on their jog and she wouldn't be able to attend the trip.
Why would you do that? That's fucking weird, bro. To
Wouldn't he
just
be hopeful
call
that she
out
just
for
shows
her?
up?
Yeah, to just assume
Yeah,
she's not gonna make it? Like, what? How do you know that?
but wouldn't he? Well, if she's out there, wouldn't you be like, oh, maybe she'll show up for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, hmm
Mm,
So Brad goes on the trip. He just comes home after. He periodically calls BB, like the residence like dorm hall phone,
mm-hmm.
to see if she came back. But that's it. He doesn't make a big to do about telling anyone what happened, really.
Right.
But that night, BB's roommates start to become concerned because she's where the fuck is she, right?
Right.
They get a hold of Brad and he says, "Oh, I lost her on the jog," and they're like, "What the fuck?"
And then what,
you
you just
know?
left her there? Like, come on.
Yes. So Brad goes to her apartment, talks to the roommates further, and eventually, after some like haggling, the group files an official missing persons report the next day. So like a lot of time passes,
It's
and Brad is the
interesting
one
that
kind of
he,
stalling shit.
well, like, what is he telling them? Like, oh, she'll come back on her own? Like, she'll call
Probably.
someone?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is weird. This is obvious, is
hmm
really what it is. Like, what an idiot. But okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Continue.
So when the police first speak to Brad, he said he was 100, that she was 100% in a fine mood that day. They were getting along great, which of course we know
Mhm.
contradicts what Robin would later say. Um,
Right.
and he says, "Oh well, she might have been moody, but just about school." So of course he's distancing it from like himself, right?
Right.
School issues.
Right.
So now it's the evening of November 5th. Over a day has passed. Police are finally doing a full search of the park. That includes bloodhounds. It's a very dramatic search. And
Hmm.
friends and family join the search. Absolutely nothing comes of it.
That's
A
kind of
couple days
crazy.
late. It is crazy. It's weird.
Hmm.
Um, a couple days later, a witness came forward that said she saw a man dragging BB into a parked van,
Oh, what the
and she
fuck?
gave a description of this man who was apparently between 6 and 6'3" in his mid 40s, so not young like Brad,
Hmm.
between 220 and 250 pounds, with messy hair and a beer belly, not looking like Brad at all. This description is made into a sketch, and that sketch is put on the flyer. So you get a picture of BB, and then you get like, "Have you seen this man?" with the sketch.
Wow.
And thousands,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there was a little curveball there for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so over the coming weeks, the search amps up and becomes really organized. There's a phone bank, tons of volunteers, 3 million flyers are distributed, but shockingly, this nothing comes of this for a while. And it's not until over a month after she disappears on December 9th, that BB's body is finally found during
Mm.
yet another search of the park.
Holy shit, it takes that long?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big park, I
No, it
guess.
is. I know. When we were there, I
Yeah,
felt like we were in like a very tiny part of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big
Okay.
area.
All right.
So searchers finally found her in a dense thicket of brush about 36 feet from Skyline Boulevard. That's the street that he would have driven to
Okay.
look for her,
Mm-hmm.
and about 700 feet from the entrance to the parking lot. So she's a ways from the parking lot, but she's closer to that road.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Her body was pretty badly decomposed
Okay.
from being outside in the elements. She was still in her jogging outfit, so obviously, that's what happened. She
Mm-hmm.
died that day.
Right.
She had 3 head wounds to the back of her head that the pathologist would later say were caused by basically 1 to 3 blunt force traumas that could have either been someone hitting her in the head with an object or her head hitting an object like a rock or a tree or something, but like with great force.
So, okay, so uh somebody hit her from behind or somebody like pushed her from the front, basically?
Yeah, but it had to be tremendous force, which I'll talk about. Like,
Okay.
even pushing may not have done it.
Wouldn't have
Like, it
been
had to be
enough.
like your head is purposefully struck against a hard surface.
So probably swung something at her from behind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Potentially, yeah. But
Hmm.
she also, very tellingly, had fractures to her nose and eye socket. So she also was hit very hard, some amount of times, at least once in the face.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay.
So police obviously get a hold of Brad pretty quick. He tells them the same very strange story. But then, after a tiny bit of pressure, he admits that when he drove out to look for her on the road, he didn't really look for her. He says that he didn't get out of the car, didn't call her name, didn't honk, and he just was like mad, I guess, or something. I don't know exactly what it doesn't say exactly what his motive or thinking was, but presumably maybe it's because they were arguing. But he says he
Hmm.
didn't look for her and he insisted that they leave without her. And it wasn't Robin's idea to do so, which she already confirmed separately, basically. And when they went back to the residence hall, he said he tried to like not tell anyone what happened.
So he was just being shady from the start.
Super shady. Yeah. This is not someone who's concerned. If you didn't do anything, this is still pretty shitty to
Yeah.
be like acting this way.
But it's like you're not
Um,
gonna act this way unless you're like trying to cover your ass. Which also like stop being so suspicious, you fucking idiot, you know?
like, yeah, if you're innocent, then you're acting super fucking
Super
guilty.
fucking guilty. Like holy
Even
fuck.
if you're pissed at her, it would behoove you to try to look at least look a little bit. Yeah,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
to pretend like you give a shit, you know? Jesus.
Ugh.
Um, yeah. And this is someone you've dated for a long time. Like you really you're cool if she's lost in the woods. Like
Hmm.
really? You're that mad? Like that's anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so Brad agrees to do a polygraph test. When they asked him if he hurt Bibi, he apparently made quote unquote crying noises, and he got so upset they had to stop the test.
Okay.
Interviewers left him alone, and then they came back. He was hysterical and crying, saying, "I loved her. I really loved her." All very, innocent behavior,
Right.
honestly.
Right.
Um, being sarcastic. So
Yeah.
when they press him again,
Sorry.
yeah, he breaks down with another confession that sounds a lot like those of our, remember our Icelandic friends from a few months ago who I talked about them having selective amnesia, where they remembered things from when they supposedly blacked out.
Right. Right.
He kind of takes that tone and he says, "Well, I must have done something to her, but I would have been like blacked out. I don't remember it."
Oh God. So now he's like, okay, I
And
did it, but I'm gonna fucking play dumb about it.
yeah, but I'll
Okay.
talk about this in a later on. He will claim that the police pressured him to imagine the scenario, which is what happened in Iceland. So we have to be a little fair here to Brad because that police can do that, like
Right.
those mind games.
Right.
Um, yeah. So he says in his imagined scenario, he claims he doesn't remember.
Hmm.
He says that when he went back to look for her in the car, this is all like in the tone of he must have blah blah blah,
Hmm.
found her, and then when he tried to like console her and talk to her, and he says hug and kiss her, she recoiled, which honestly would track because
Fine.
she's like, I'm
Yeah.
pissed at you, you know.
Yeah.
Um, she recoiled, and this angered him, so he backhanded slapped her in the face.
Okay.
And she fell back, hitting some kind of tree or log, he said,
Okay.
and he left her there.
Huh.
So then, this is a lot to be like in a hypothetical. He
Right.
says that he returned to the park that night and found Bibi lying where he had left her dead, and
Hmm.
then he raped her dead body.
Oh my God. What the
Weird to throw that in
fuck?
there in a hypothetical. Usually, in my experience too, like with covering like false confessions and stuff, usually
Yeah.
they keep it really minimal. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
really surface. They don't add like
Yeah.
tons of colorful
Like
detail.
that kind of shit?
Um,
Holy fuck, dude.
right. That's crazy.
Yeah.
He then said after doing that, he moved her closer to the road and covered her with a little bit of dirt, which that part does track. There was a thin layer of dirt found on her,
Okay. That's
but
weird.
who knows? That could just be from being there.
It's crazy it took a
Um,
month to find her, considering.
it
Like this
is.
is
It
it's like
is.
Jesus.
And it's not like they weren't looking. They were. So, um, in the confession, he both had, like I said, this language of like, I guess I must have done this. It's like, uncertain language. But he also had all these colorful details and some really, really minute specifics, like how he used the car's hubcap to shovel dirt on her and how their exchange went exactly before he backhanded her. You know what I mean? Like really,
Yeah,
really, really
stuff that
specific
like you're not
details.
gonna be able to. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
No, nobody is that specific unless like they did it, like,
Hmm.
come on. Okay. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So shortly after this, they made a taped confession um, of the same shit. So he just repeated it all again.
Hmm.
Then, when they tried to get him to repeat it a third time, he recanted and he claimed he was forced into imagining this like possible scenario, imagining
Hmm.
what if he did this and he blacked out and doesn't remember it, but he didn't do it and he doesn't remember it.
Right. Okay.
So he claimed they were going to, like, all the usual stuff with forced confessions. He said they were going to threaten him that he would never get out of there. He was going to
Hmm.
be left to rot in jail. He would never leave, the interrogation room unless he said this, unless he imagined this story. Um, so it does sound in one way like those false confession cases.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, except he sounds a lot more guilty as well.
I mean, it
Um,
sounds like he has all the details because he fucking did it. Like a lot of false
yes,
confessions, they only feed the details that the police give them and not anything
yes,
else. So it's like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't.
So he is arrested and charged with Bibi's murder. They charge him with like the range of options between voluntary manslaughter, first, second, and second degree. So the jury has options.
Mm,
The prosecution presented at trial, obviously. Oh my gosh, sneeze attack.
I just sneezed too, but I was able to mute
Oh,
because I'm not
I couldn't.
talking.
Oh man. Oh, all right. Recovering. Okay, so the prosecution presents obviously the confession, which is like very damning.
Hmm.
The tension that Robin pointed out in the car ride, and they pointed out also how his confession included a lot of very accurate descriptions of the crime scene that only the killer would know,
Right. That weren't
and
fed to him by
detailed.
police.
Correct, like very specific details about where the body was found,
Hmm.
how her shirt was pushed up, the witnesses yeah, that was consistent with the going back and assaulting her potentially. Um, there's also witnesses, like I said, who saw that abduction of Bibi, but they discredit that. The prosecution does by saying that those stories don't match with the timeline, and they
Yeah.
also conflict with each other. So the multiple different people who saw things don't match up in their stories.
Hmm.
But I'm still a little suspicious of that because I'm like, well, who was getting abducted then? Like
Right.
what was that at the park that
Right.
day?
Right.
Matching Bibi's description.
Hmm.
But we also know that she was killed roughly where she was last seen, right? Like at the
Hmm.
park. So if she was abducted, I guess they could have killed her in the car and dumped her right back out at the same spot.
I've seen that
Um,
before. That has happened. Like where
it's
they'll
not
abduct,
impossible.
yeah, they'll abduct a body or a person and then murder them and then dump them
Dump her at
back.
the same place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So the defense talked about how Brad was like really sad about losing Bibi, which doesn't mean much. How he was involved in the search to find her, which, as we just discussed, can
Hmm.
actually be more evidence of them
Guilt.
being a sick and twisted killer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Than anything else. So that doesn't mean much.
And is weirdly
Um,
common too, which like I hate. Like I
super
really
common.
hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had experts testify that the polygraph was not properly given, and they had other polygraph experts testify that they thought he didn't actually fail it. But I'm like, okay, if he was crying, upset, like, kind of
Yeah.
sounds like he did.
Right.
Um, they poke holes in the alleged confession the other way by saying that it didn't match the evidence. So the points that the defense makes are, for example, that the slap he claimed he did was not forceful for enough for her to fall and get those back of the head injuries, which to me I think is actually legit. But I think it's not because the whole confession was false. It could be that he was just minimizing the violence that he inflicted on her
Right.
in his story. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because it's to me, it's a classic kind of thing to say, oh, well, I hit her and she fell back and hit her head, right? When in reality, you beat her to death. Like, to
Right.
me, that's fucking classic. How many times have we heard that? Like, um, it's very, very classic behavior. So, yeah, it's like I believe that she didn't fall back and get those injuries, and the pathologist agreed with that. But I think
Right.
that's just him
Trying to
being full of shit.
minimize. Yeah.
Yeah.
Diminish.
They also
Diminish.
claimed that, yeah, the blanket that he claimed he used from his car, put down to rape her, post-mortem didn't have any evidence on it. So maybe the blankets, maybe he was bullshitting about the blanket. Like this could be just him bullshitting, right?
Well, it's also interesting
Um,
because, like, the blanket, he could be seen as, like, trying to be more caring or something. You know how they do that
mhm.
too? Like, murderers think that that somehow
Oh, I got a
makes a
blanket. Yeah,
difference.
like,
Like,
oh, who cares?
he's already
Um,
dead. Like, what the fuck? Yeah.
yeah. The hubcap he claimed he used to shovel dirt didn't have evidence or dirt on it. There was also no tree limb on her body, and he claimed that he put a tree limb on her. So there are these little things that don't match up, but it's hard to say if those discredit the whole confession. There's
Yeah.
also things that do match up, right?
Hmm.
I have to let my cat in, or else you might hear this noise in the background. One second.
Okay. What is she? I want to take a screenshot of Diva right now.
Sorry about that. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear anything, but you looked hilarious because you have your background in Zoom like fuzzed out. And so it was just you, like almost like floating in air and like half disappeared. Like it looked like you were like, I don't know what you were doing, but it was really funny.
Ghost Diva.
Yeah, it was great. Anyway,
Um,
okay, go on, go on, go on.
Okay, all right, back it. Almost done here. So, this trial ends actually with Brad being acquitted on first and second degree murder,
What?
but a mistrial on voluntary manslaughter.
What? Because of this stupid
Really
witness
weird.
report of the van? Is that, I'm guessing that's what did it.
I guess, and like I said, there's a lot of complications with the confession where certain things match the evidence and certain things do not.
Is that, I thought
So,
everything did match. Like, what didn't match? I,
well, like I said, there's a tree limb, there's the blanket, there's the hubcap, and
okay,
the
okay.
injuries.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
I said
okay.
he's just lying about, but the injuries
Right.
don't match with I slapped her and she fell backwards. She was
Ugh,
clearly bashed, like in the back of the head.
right. Ay, ay, ay. Okay.
So,
So,
fast forward to 1988, a few years later. Again, she's killed in 84. So now we're in
mhm,
1988. He was tried again for the voluntary manslaughter charge because he can't be tried again on the other stuff.
mhm.
Um, which I don't get voluntary manslaughter. That's a whole other rant. I'm sure we've talked about it, but
Yeah.
like, isn't manslaughter like by definition an involuntary thing? Like you hit someone with your car or
I feel like voluntary manslaughter is when you did something stupid knowingly, but not realizing that it would lead to death, maybe. Whereas
right.
involuntary is like you
That's
did
true.
something
Totally
stupid
an accident.
accidentally and it led to death. That might be more what
Right.
it is. Like,
Right. With voluntary, there's some intention to hurt the person, but you didn't intend to kill them,
exactly. And with
kind of
involuntary,
thing.
you're just being a moron, kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also
Maybe.
it's interesting because if you buy that he did it as a voluntary manslaughter, then you are automatically saying that you believe that, for example, he just hit her and she fell. Because that sounds like voluntary manslaughter. However, the evidence does not support her just falling.
Yeah.
She was like beaten in the back of the head. So it's like whoever killed her, she didn't get
Yeah.
voluntary manslaughter to death. Like
Right. Yeah.
she was murdered
She was
by
fucking
someone.
murdered. So the fact that it's
Yeah.
even like that is fucking
It
crazy.
shouldn't be on the menu,
No.
honestly.
No.
Um, but it's what they got left here, so
Okay.
they try him for that. The defense brings in an additional expert on coerced confessions, and talks about like all the pressure on Brad and like basically all of that, everything that he's saying made it an obviously, coerced confession.
Right.
And there's definitely some, ambiguity about that. Even in the way this is covered and talked about, a lot of people think this was a forced confession.
A lot of people.
Um,
So it really is like, did he do it? Did he not do it?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Um, so the jury deliberated for 6 days, which I think testifies to how confusing this is, genuinely. But they ultimately found him guilty of voluntary manslaughter in her death.
Okay.
Um, so he appealed. All these appeals were rejected. He gets sentenced to 6 years, going
Hmm.
to prison in 1992, but he got out on parole after serving 2.5 years. So voluntary manslaughter is clearly not a big deal. I mean, it is, but it's not.
Right. Right.
Less than like a drug charge or something.
Hmm.
Um, in 1994, I guess he would have been out or just about to be out. Connie Chung, who's big in the 90s here, she threw out a new suspect on her TV show, a serial killer named Michael Patrick Ida. I don't know how to say his last name.
I love Connie Chung, by
Um,
the way. Like, I used to really
oh
love her.
yeah,
Yeah.
big
I don't
Connie
think
Chung
she's
fan.
still
Okay,
doing anything anymore, but yeah, I was a huge fan.
she must got to be old, right? Connie
Yeah.
Chung,
Oh yeah.
because she was. I feel like she was a '90s.
And is she married to Maury Povich?
Maury. She's
Yeah,
married to fucking Maury.
it's fucking
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I know that. I love that. I love Maury. Okay. She's 77. Still going strong. Okay.
Oh,
Um,
she is, and okay, good, good for her. Go Connie,
yeah.
badass
Um,
bitch. Okay,
so
but anyway,
Connie suggests that it was a false confession. That was her opinion, and that she throws out the idea of this serial killer, Michael Patrick Ida, who was active in the East Bay at the time. He fit the description given by that witness. He was like a pot belly, big guy, right age, messy hair.
okay,
So slightly interesting. I guess he had also killed a very young Asian woman around the same time. So some of his crimes have a similar MO,
okay.
abducting random women. Um, it's not impossible.
It doesn't
Um,
sound impossible. It actually now
yeah,
I'm like, hold on, because before I was like, I think it was him. I think it was him, but now,
yeah.
well, maybe not. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. Sorry, my
Yeah.
dog is barking for no reason. I apologize.
Okay, it's okay. So that's about it. But I have one weird end cap here to mention. In 2002, while for some reason traveling in New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
Brad Page was actually arrested for indecent exposure, and
What?
he yeah, and he had to be escorted out of the country like a police escort to face charges. And he interestingly committed this act of like assaulting or kind of exposing himself to a woman while hiking.
While
So
hiking.
yeah, isn't that
It
interesting?
is
Something about that.
interesting. But I did just look up the Michael Patrick Ida, which is IHDE, if anybody wants to look it up. He is that he is that sketch.
Hmm.
He is that sketch.
Yeah,
Or very close.
and
His face isn't as fat, but like very close.
it's also not like, to me, it's not impossible that like we what do we know? He does look like the sketch, huh?
He looks just
I
like
hadn't
him.
done this side by side. Yeah.
Really
And
close.
I like don't think it's impossible knowing that she's mad that like she ran off on her own. You know what I mean? Like that she was like pissed and so she distanced herself and went off on her own like meditative nature walk and that's when this guy gets her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I mean, it's like the story he tells to me also sounds very legitimate of like finding her and like she recoils from him because she's pissed and then, you know, all this stuff. So it's like
yeah.
that also tracks to me. And again, like if he abducted her, he'd have to dump her like pretty close to where she was found. But that's also I don't know. I kind of went back and forth on this. Like I do, it's 100% possible that the
Yeah.
boyfriend killed her, that Brad did, but
I'm starting to
I'm
think
not 100%.
not. Before I was like, no, he did it. Now I'm like,
Yeah,
he didn't.
I'm
Like,
not 100%.
I'm not either. I'm really
It is
torn.
also really weird to me though to murder a girlfriend you're on a jog with because it's like there's no like you were with that person. You know what I mean? Like you're clearly going to be under suspicion. Um I don't know. Like it's all very strange. It's very sad, it's very strange.
Uh, that is really fucking weird. I mean, people like push their fucking partners off mountains and shit when they're hiking. So it's
Yes.
not like completely
Yes.
unreasonable
But
that
then they stage
that's
it as an accident though. But then that's like a different type of thing where they're like, "Oh, they fell off the cliff. We were taking a picture." Like that's an accident staging thing. Like
yeah.
he could have done that and he didn't.
Yeah. I don't think he did it now.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't think he did. I went from like, he did it. What the fuck? I
See,
can't
I
believe
told
he only
you
did
it's
this much.
ambiguous. You'd be on a journey.
I
Yeah.
I feel like he didn't do it. I feel like he didn't do it.
Okay.
But the way he was behaving was very weird. So yeah, no, it's
Yes.
ambiguous. Fuck.
It is ambiguous.
This is a good
These
one.
happen.
This is a good
And
one.
you know, the confession sucks, but like the selective amnesia thing happens. It's a whole term. In my Icelandic case, I learned about that, where it's like, well, what if you blacked out? What if
Right.
you did something and you don't remember it? And like,
Right.
so
Damn.
who knows how much the police actually like pushed
Fed
him with
him
details too.
or
Who knows?
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Police are shitty. But yeah, there's a tale from the one of the two places on Earth I've been like hiking too with Cindy. So I thought that was special.
I love that. I mean, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's yeah. Okay. Well, there it is. There it
Okay.
is. All right. Well, damn. I don't know how to feel about that, but we'll be back with two more similar cases very soon. Thanks
Yes.
everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed these. That is a fucking head scratcher. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. We both have things to do, so we're going to go, but thanks everybody for tuning in. Please like, rate, review, share with your friends and family. Join us on Patreon, join us on Instagram. And until the second half,
Stay.
off our
Yes.
list. Have a bye.
Bye.